So I'm thinking of changing the name of Event Wednesday to Education Wednesday. What I talk about will essentially still be the same, but the goal will be to teach you all a little bit something that you didn't know, rather than talk about some event. That said, this is probably what it would look like. So yesterday I presented a major project, and so my brain has been filled with pretty much nothing else for the past few days, so I'm going to talk about it today. Y'all are probably well aware that I am a music education major. What you might not be aware of is that music education, like the other subjects, has national standards. In 1994, a piece of education legislation called Goals 2000 was passed. This legislation included national standards for the various subjects that would be taught in schools. The MENC, the National Association for Music Education, fought to also get national standards established for the various art forms: music, theater, visual art, and dance. And so starting in 1994, music education had 9 national standards. And what my project was on was, how did we come up with those 9? What was the precedence for coming up with those 9 standards? Here's what I found out. First of all, there were 5 standards that basically talked about the foundations of music education: performance, music literacy, listening, composition, arranging, that sort of thing. And then you had 2 standards that were towards the bottom as far as how often they were mentioned. Standard number 3, which is the standard for improvisation, and standard number 9, which is understanding music in relation to history and other cultures. And while those 2 subjects were not mentioned very often, there was an increase of those topics in, go figure, the 60s. As we became more and more aware of other cultures and the growing world around us, more music education articles reflected that. And then you had 2 standards that are kind of ambiguous. Standard 8 is understanding the relationship of music to other disciplines and other art forms. This is the standard that says music relates to math, to science, to history, etc. All the things that you learn about in school. And then you have Standard 7. Standard 7 is probably the most straightforward of the standards, evaluating music and music performance. In other words, teaching kids how to self-evaluate, evaluate their own performances, and evaluate music in general. Evaluation is a higher level thinking skill and one that should be taught in school, so it makes sense that that won't be there. But here's the thing, before 1994, there is little, if any, literature about self-evaluation. All the literature I found had to do with teacher evaluation and adjudicator evaluation, but not student evaluation. However, after 1994, there were all sorts of articles published about this very subject. And this was strange to me because when I did my student teaching, this was a major part of the curriculum. Every time the band would have a performance of any kind, the day after, they would listen to a recording of it and they would evaluate themselves. And I would imagine that other bands and choirs and orchestras did much the same thing. And the other funny thing about this standard is this. Like I said, the other art forms have standards too: dance, theater, and visual arts. And a lot of them overlap, like relating different art forms to each other and relating their art forms to history and culture. But music education is the only one that has a standard specifically for evaluation. The other art forms have standards for evaluation too, but it's more evaluation of the techniques, and it's always joined with something else. Music education is the only one that has a standard exclusively for self-evaluation. So the question remains, where did this standard come from? It just seems to appear out of nowhere. And I do have my own speculations, but I would have to give you a lot of background about Bennett Reamer and absolute expressionism, and there really isn't time for that. I really love looking at history, and I especially love looking at the evolution of an idea. So now I've taught you something that you didn't know, and maybe something you didn't want to know. Leave me some feedback on what you think of Education Wednesday, and maybe I'll make the change for next time. Until then, see ya.